Good morning. Welcome to this January 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District Board of Directors. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Vice Chair Aquino?
Here.
Director Desmond? Here. Director Dickinson? Director Guerra?
Here.
Director Hume? Chair Kennedy?
Here.
Director Maple? Here. Director Middleton? Director Robles?
Here.
Director Rodriguez?
Here.
Director Sander?
Here.
Director Cerna?
Here.
Director Vang? We have quorum.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Members of the public are encouraged to observe the meeting in real time at metro14live.saccounty.gov, participate in person via Zoom video or teleconference line, and by submitting written comments to boardclerk@airquality.org. Comments will be delivered to the Board of Directors. Public comments regarding matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors will be acknowledged by the chairperson, distributed to the Board of Directors, and included in the record. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast and DirecTV U-verse cable systems. This meeting is being closed captioned and will be live streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will be repeated on Saturday, January 25th, 2025 at 2 p.m. on Channel 14.
Thank you very much. With that, as far as Brown Act goes, let it be known for the record that Vice Chair Aquino and Director Guerra are joining us remotely. And that takes us to our consent calendar. And before we get there, let me just welcome back to the dais Director Dickinson. Thank you for being here. Director Rodriguez, welcome.
Thank you.
And I believe Director Sanders, Sander, are you? No, all right. You don't seem new to anything, but welcome all of you. It's good to have you here. Please, next item.
So we have the consent calendar, items 1 through 6.
All right. Is there anything on the consent calendar that the board would like to address at this time?
Move consent.
Second.
Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board on an item on consent? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Aquino?
Aye.
Director Desmond? Aye. Director Dickinson? Aye. Director Guerra?
Aye.
Director Hume? Chair Kennedy?
All right.
Director Maple?
Aye.
Director Middleton? Director Robles?
Aye.
Director Rodriguez?
Aye.
Director Sander?
Aye.
Director Cerna?
Aye.
Director Vang? The consent calendar passes.
Thank you. That takes us to item number 7. Please read the item.
So next item on the discussion calendar, item number 7, selection of chair and vice chair of the Board of Directors of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District.
All right. Here's our annual. Director Guerra, I believe your hand is raised.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate our current Vice Chair, Chair Aquino, as Chair, and Director Maple as Vice Chair.
Okay.
A second.
All right. Are there any other nominations at this time? Do we have any public comment on this item? Nope. All right. Please call the roll.
Vice Chair Aquino? Vice Chair Aquino? Oh,
Aye.
Thank you. Director Desmond? Aye. Director Dickinson? Aye. Director Guerra?
Aye.
Director Hume? Chair Kennedy?
Aye.
Director Maple?
Aye.
Director Middleton? Director Robles?
Aye.
Director Rodriguez?
Aye.
Director Sander?
Aye.
Director Cerna?
Aye.
Director Vang? The consent item number 7 passes.
Thank you. Congratulations. And next item, please.
Next item on the discussion calendar, item number 8, appointment of board members to the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District Budget and Personnel Committee.
I believe that's me. Are there any members of the board? Currently, we have the chair, the vice chair, and the past chair. I believe we need one more member. Member Robles, I believe you have served on this. I know you've put a great deal of time and effort into it. Would you be interested in continuing?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So that
One more.
We need one more. Is there a volunteer? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Appreciate that. Then we have a full.
You don't have to attend.
It's very minimal time related meeting. Okay, we have a full complement.
Okay.
Thank you.
We need to pass the
Oh,
motion.
okay. That's my motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Aquino,
Aye.
Director Desmond, Director Dickinson,
Now I'm thinking about it. Reluctant aye.
Director Guerra,
Aye.
Director Hume, Chair Kennedy,
Aye.
Director Maple,
Aye.
Director Middleton, and Director Robles, Director Rodriguez,
Aye.
Director Sander,
Aye.
Director Cerna, Director Vang. Item number 8 passes as well.
Next item.
So the next item on the calendar, item number 9, Agricultural Burn and Smoke Management Program and Biomass Utilization Update. And I have Ashley Reynolds in chambers to give a presentation. Give me 1 second, I'll pull up the PowerPoint. There's a delay. There we go.
Good morning, Chair Kennedy and members of the board. My name is Ashley Reynolds, and I am a program supervisor in our compliance section. Today, we'll be presenting to you about our agricultural burn program and its relation to the smoke management plan and biomass utilization. Next slide, please. The district oversees several burn programs: open burning, recreational burning, check before you burn, and agricultural burning. Ag burning also includes prescribed burn and all our regional coordination on smoke management. Next slide, please. Before I get into our agricultural burn program, I want to talk about how burning in our basin is coordinated. Sacramento County is part of the Sacramento Valley Air Basin. The Sacramento Valley Basin-Wide Air Pollution Control Council, or BCC, coordinates agricultural burning activities in our air basin. The BCC consists of 9 air districts and 11 counties, covers 216 square miles. The BCC has a representative from each county board. Our current BCC member is Director Guerra. So the BCC is supported by the Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC. The TAC consists of the District Air Pollution Control Officers. The BCC and TAC together create and administer the basin-wide smoke management plan. Next slide, please. The smoke management program took effect in 2001 with the goals of coordinating air quality in the Sac Valley Basin, minimizing smoke impacts, and coordinating daily ag burning operations between districts. The smoke management plan tells us and other districts in the basin when to allow burning, limits rice straw burning, and dictates burn acreage per district. This is a complicated and coordinated effort that also includes CARB staff, meteorologists, and district staff looking at a basin-wide conditions and local conditions daily. The most intensive coordination occurs during fall burn, which is September through November, and is when most ag burning typically occurs. This past fall burn season, we saw an increase in burning due to favorable conditions. The total amount burned acres put this past season in the top 3 years of the most acres burned in the last 10 years. While Sacramento County allows ag burning, we typically have less burning compared to other counties in our basin. For instance, this last season, 3% of the acres burned were in Sacramento County. Next slide, please. Agricultural burning involves the controlled use of the controlled use of fire to manage vegetation and dispose of agricultural waste. It's governed by CARB and the Smoke Management Plan. Our program ensures these practices are conducted safely and responsibly. Some key burn types include clearing fields after harvesting crops like rice and corn, disposing of orchard and vineyard debris, maintaining fields to eliminate weeds, pests, and disease, and prescribed fires, which is another vital component, and are carefully planned burns used to manage wildland, grassland, and forest areas. Prescribed fires are recognized to play a crucial role in reducing wildfire risks. While Sacramento County is less prone to catastrophic wildfires than heavily forested areas, our grasslands and woodlands still require regular upkeep. For the past 4 years, the district has operated this program, which involves daily tasks managed by forest staff. Responsibilities include issuing burn permits, determining daily burn day statuses, approving burn requests, conducting inspections, and addressing complaints. These duties are essential but resource intensive. While advancements in technology are making alternatives to burning more feasible, agricultural burning at present remains a crucial tool for sustainable land management. Next slide, please. Our program typically issues around 100 permits annually. We manage approximately about 1,000 acres of burned land as well per year. However, this year, activity has increased significantly with more acreage already burned compared to last year. Much of this uptick is in burning this year is due to vineyard removals. Despite its critical role, this program faces funding challenges. Rule 303, which governs agricultural burning fees, hasn't been updated since 1995 and lacks a CPI adjustment, unlike our other fee structures. This remains a significant challenge for this program, which requires daily oversight and significant staffing to manage duties effectively. Next slide, please. While ag burning is a traditional method used by growers to get rid of ag waste, this may not always be an option that can be used in the future if we look at neighboring counties to our south. In the San Joaquin Valley Air District, a regional ag burn ban just went into effect at the beginning of this year. Legislation passed in 2003 set in motion years of work with growers and the state to try and find feasible alternatives to ag burning. The district received $180 million in state funding to explore incentives for things like chipping and composting ag material, and the use of air curtain burners that burned the ag material more efficiently than open burning. The efforts done in San Joaquin Valley also demonstrated the difficulty of coming up with cost-effective strategies to transition away from traditional ag burning. Next slide, please. While nothing is currently being proposed, we look at the ag burn ban in San Joaquin as an example of requirements that could happen in other parts of the state, including in our air basin. While this would be a difficult transition for growers, it is in line with other air quality and climate goals. Using biomass to make fuels, energies, and other useful products instead of allowing it to be burned will support several co-benefits. One being any reduction in smoke is an improvement for air quality and the health of anyone exposed to the smoke. 2, reducing agricultural burning will have a positive reduction on climate pollution. And lastly, using biomass will have a positive reduction on climate pollution. Will have a positive, using biomass for new industries and job markets have a definite benefit for driving economic growth and creating jobs in traditionally underserved communities in our valley. Next slide, please. With so many beneficial reasons to utilize biomass, the Air District, along with our BCC collaborators, are making substantial efforts to raise awareness of the needs to increase funding opportunities for biomass utilization. In 2023, the BCC held a well-attended biomass conference to bring together varied stakeholders. In 2024, the BCC and the Air District successfully advocated for funding in the Climate Bond Prop 4. This bond allocated $50 million to the Department of Conservation, allowing a portion of the money to be used for the biomass-related projects. And in 2025, the advocacy work continues at an even greater pace, especially with the support and drive of this year's BCC Chair, Director Guerra. In the first half of this year, the BCC will develop a networking session and a day at the Capitol to raise awareness and continue the funding advocacy work. And during the APCO report, Dr. Ayala will be sharing news of other legislative efforts underway. Next slide, please. Through our efforts in exploring and taking advantages of opportunities in renewable hydrogen, we are beginning to see growing opportunities for converting biomass into fuel within our region. One such project is Ecomotive, planned to be located off of I-5 and Twin Cities Road, providing easy access to major transportation corridors. Ecomotive will utilize agricultural and forest waste biomass to produce renewable energy and hydrogen fuel, supporting light-duty, medium, and heavy-duty transportation. As this region's first biomass to hydrogen generation facility, Ecomotive represents a significant step forward. By repurposing biomass, it eliminates the need for traditional burning of agricultural and forest waste while creating a sustainable source of clean energy and hydrogen fuel. Next slide, please. Another exciting initiative on the horizon is Alliance for Renewable Clean Hydrogen System, or ARCHES. ARCHES is a groundbreaking public-private partnership aimed at establishing a sustainable statewide clean hydrogen hub network across California. Notably, ARCHES has received $1.2 billion in funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, marking the largest federal investment in clean energy and transportation to date. This initiative prioritizes hydrogen hub projects that utilize local renewable resources such as agricultural and forest biomass to produce hydrogen fuel. These efforts aim to decarbonize the energy and transportation sectors while building resilience in these critical areas. By converting biomass feedstock into hydrogen, through advanced processes like anaerobic digestion or gasification, ARCHES reduces waste disposal and agricultural forest burning, transforming waste into valuable clean energy source. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Director Dickinson.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Can you go back to the slide about the advocacy for a sec? Is that possible? Okay.
Which slide? I believe
There you go.
that was, slide 8.
I was just curious about the amount of funding that was included in Prop 4 for biomass, firstly, and secondly, what's the source of the $50 million that you've got on your slide for 2025 advocacy?
Definitely, I'll direct that question over to Dr. Ayala.
Thank you. Happy to address it. Thank you for the question, Director Dickinson. Welcome. So you're correct. Prop 4, the climate bond, has $50 million for activities that we think are related to what we're trying to do here. In addition, we are working at the Capitol at the moment, and I'll touch on this in my report later today. We are looking for a specific amount of $50 million to scale up some of the projects like the ecomotive that you heard about. So that's really what the intent is here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. What's the source of the $50 million you're looking for this year?
Well, we're asking the legislature to allocate from the current state budget an allocation to us, to the BCC, for the projects. Yeah, so we don't have the money on hand.
No, I understand that. You're looking for general fund allocation from the state this year, hopefully.
Well, there's different kinds of funds that can be used, right? I mean, the climate money, the GGRF, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, is obviously a source that is tied to what we're trying to do here. So at the moment, we're working with different legislators to see if we can get broad support for the funding request.
I see. Okay. And then with respect to the conversion of agricultural waste to biomass, does that require primarily, or would it require primarily transporting the waste to wherever the biomass gasification facilities are located? And if so, is that a cost that would be absorbed in whatever project you could put together, or is that a cost that would presumably fall to the landowner?
So that's the reason we need the funding, precisely because we know that there are some associated costs to doing this. And if we were able to use funding and provide subsidies, we think that we can promote the technology development that we're after. However, to your point, what we have seen is rather than going to get the biomass, we have seen plants, small scale plants, and I'm talking a couple megawatts of energy producing capability. We have seen plants actually going to where the biomass is. So rather than having to transport long distances, we now have technology where you can go to where the resources are. And that is the idea here, so that you limit not only the cost of transportation, but also the associated emissions of that.
I see. So then you're transporting the hydrogen once it's produced.
Once it's produced, then we have all options on the table, including utilization for transportation. Correct.
I see. Okay, it's very Very interesting. You know, just trying to get rid of ag burning has been a lifelong effort, and so this is interesting. But what we can learn from San Joaquin, I suppose, is very useful with respect to applying it to our own circumstances. And I hope this is successful because it still is problematic to have ag burning going on. Certainly, so I hope you can get that allocation out of the state budget. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. Any others? Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yeah,
Thank-
Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You did. It's a very small hand for me right now, but there you go. There you go, Director.
No, I just wanted to thank the staff here for their great work on this. To Director Dickinson's question, last year our staff, along with some of the other Air District staff, engaged in the Prop 4 discussion. We were pushing for a $200 million allocation in Prop 4. Unfortunately, the Senate only had $100 million in their proposal, and the Assembly had zero. But it was the active work of our advocacy team here and Sacramento really leading with the northern air districts. And maybe Amy, if you could go to slide 3, the fact that Sacramento was able to coalesce and bring the 9 air districts and the 11 counties together to advocate. We, as they say, legislative math. Assembly had 0, Senate had 100. We got 50 in it. But I think one more up, I think it is where we've got the map of the counties. There we go. So this was our team of effort of folks who were willing to come together and start using their legislative contacts, Republicans and Democratic supervisors and council members, to actually get something here. And the bigger message is that the current opinion on what to do as an alternative for ag burning is only composting and chipping. And what we've seen from the San Joaquin example was they received $180 million with very little success. And just because of the cost of that, and then from an air quality standpoint and water standpoint, the issues of water and then methane exposure that happens with composting as well. So this is really kind of put Sacramento on the forefront of biomass utilization. And if you can go one slide down, I think with where it has the counties. There we go. And I think this is what you'll see in this next year is all of these counties working together through the BCC to really engage, because what happens for Sacramento is the winds from Shasta all the way down come and settle in Sacramento, and then the winds from Solano, Yolo, come to Sacramento. And unfortunately, we have the pressure that kind of allows the smoke to sit there. So for us, it's a health interest, but for them, it's also an economic interest to do that. So I do want to put a date on your calendar on February 26th. Our Air District team is working with our local JPAs, SMUD, SACOG, Sewer District, and ARCHIS to do a convening to look at all of these approaches on how we develop hydrogen through biomass and other tools, but also what is the output for the usage? Where do we use the hydrogen after that? So a big kudos to the staff on that. And then because we're locally, we hope that our board members here will help in the advocacy efforts this year to secure those $50 million. We think that we can do it through the Prop 4 funding. Not all of it had been appropriated, or at least presented in the governor's January budget, and then through a combination of GGRF and also Energy Commission grants, and as well as the general fund. Those are our tactical approach this year. So I'll leave it at that, and I just want to thank the staff again for their hard work.
Thank you, Director. Anybody else? All right. Again, we have no public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda, item number 10, Climate Heat Impact Response Program Update, and I have Amy Roberts in chambers to give a presentation.
Well, good morning, Chair Kennedy and Board of Directors. My name is Amy Roberts, and I'm the Director for our Engineering and Compliance Division. Today, I'm happy to present and give some updates on the Climate Heat Response Impact Program, and it's the CHIRP program. I think we've mentioned it in the past, but there's some good news updates for me to provide later on. So first, next slide, please, Selena. We've obviously all been experiencing heat events, and unfortunately, they're becoming more common and more extreme in these past decade. For California, that's meant a couple of very extreme heat events, and in particular, in 2021 and 2022, if you recall those events. What happened there was they were so extreme that the governor's office released executive orders in both instances. In those executive orders, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work to put those together and to figure out how to keep the lights on for the state. Part of those executive orders basically allowed dirtier power sources, so backup generators, power plants, ships at berth to operate outside of their permit limits, and it meant more air pollution in our region and other parts of the state. So next slide, please. This emergency strategy definitely came with a major downside, as I mentioned, more air pollution and often more pollution in communities where those industries are located. Those are our underserved and disadvantaged communities, is often the case. So to mitigate what is necessary in those emergencies, the 2021 governor's order also included a clause that required those excess emissions to be mitigated with three main goals. Basically, that future funding that would mitigate those excess emissions would be put in projects that would be located with impacted communities. Second, those funds would fund projects that would reduce future damage to air quality and to communities, and that there'd also be some resiliency that was built into, so those projects we would see less reliance on traditional or dirtier sources of power during those emergency events. CARB quickly began to work on a program, the CHIRP program, and that happened in 2021, in the fall of 2021. A lot of stakeholders were brought to the table. Air districts were invited to work with CARB as well as communities in order to start to think about how we would take those projects and how we would get them into those communities. Next slide, please. So let me go back to 2022 so that you understand the impact that the 2022 heat event had on our region. So that local experience in 2022 did have air pollution consequences. You may recall that we peaked at 116 degrees, which was a record heat day. It was listed as one of the hottest heat events in 4 decades. So a lot of records being broken, record amount of energy being used. And CAISO had multiple days, over a week of days where that emergency order was in place and backup generators, et cetera, could operate outside of those permit limits. Next slide, please. So in coordination with state agencies, one of our local data centers, NTT, which is located in the northwest part of the county, operated 28 of their large backup diesel generators over the course of 4 out of those, eight-ish days. The operation totaled about 560 hours, and the backup generators, just to give you perspective, each one of those generators is similar in size to what you would have in a locomotive. So 3,000 horsepower and above for each of those. So think about 28 locomotives operating in a fairly stationary, or at a stationary source, operating for 4 days, pretty much straight. When we analyzed what that runtime equated to in terms of the air pollution from those 28 generators, the numbers were very striking. There was more NOx and air pollution created in those 4 days of operation versus the whole prior year in 2021 of operation of emergency for maintenance and emergency hours. Next slide, please. So seeing those significant emissions released during those 4 days, it was concerning, not only from a general air quality perspective, especially during the summer months when ozone production is peaking, but also it's from the potential health risk perspective from the emissions of diesel particulate matter. Those are diesel-fueled backup generators, which is a toxic air contaminant. Much of the focus of state and our local regulatory and incentive efforts are focused clearly on reducing air pollution, reducing diesel emissions from diesel fueled equipment. We're not encouraging it, we're trying to reduce that, and looking at if this is going to be a regular occurrence, this could have significant consequences for air pollution and air quality control. So while NTT is not located directly in an officially designated disadvantaged community or underserved community, you can see on the map that it is located relatively close by. It's adjacent to some of our most impacted communities in the north. Regardless of where you live, diesel emissions pose a health risk for anybody. So we saw this operation as a prime case where mitigation from a state CHIRP program was needed to address the excess emissions created directly from the emergency proclamation and encouraged use of our dirtiest sources of power. Next slide, please. Since the creation of the CHIRP program in 21, our air district, along with other districts throughout the state and the California Air Pollution Control District or Control Officers Association, known as CAPCOA, continually advocated for the state to take action and to fulfill those program promises. Those efforts included many meetings, presentations, discussions with CARB, with the California Energy Commission and the governor's office to explain the impact and need not only for funding to mitigate, but for long-term solutions. Again, recognizing the impact in 21 and 22 and expecting that those would continue into the future. Because of the significant state budget deficit, and in part because much of the usage data that they collected or attempted to collect from sources was partial, not complete, they did put a hold on that program. So for several years, we advocated and continually pushed for the importance of those mitigating funds to be released. And that finally has paid off this past fall. CARB did inform air districts that funding was finally secured and will be released this year. Sacramento Air District will receive a good portion of that funding to the tune of almost $2 million. And I do want to take a moment just to thank our permitting program manager, Brian Krebs, who was instrumental in making sure that that data was accurate. We were one of the air districts that was able to provide accurate data to the state, which helped support the funding that we did receive. Next slide, please. Lastly, now that we've received that good news, our district's grants and incentives team is taking the lead on working with CARB and other CAPCOA districts. They're beginning to develop the funding guidance that will establish the requirements for how the funding can be spent. And again, we'll look for prioritizing those funds so that they can be used in communities in need and looking for zero emission technology solutions and any kind of energy storage solution like battery backup power instead of diesel fired backup power. With that, that'll conclude my presentation. I'll take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Dickinson. Nope.
Boy, this is just fun, punching these buttons. What did you look at just out of curiosity, the AQI on the days that these generators were online?
I don't have those numbers in my mind. I could just make some assumptions that it was quite high given that there's the direct connection.
I'm just curious whether there was an identifiable impact on the AQI as a result of the generation or not, and that maybe the AQI is too general to connect it to source generation, but.
Thank you for your question, Director Dickinson. It is tricky in order to make that correlation. As I said, we're relying on those general assumptions that increased NOx and definitely the heat and the sun of the summer is going to create more ozone. Where that lands and all of the, that's a trickier thing to assess. But let me ask my colleague, Mark Lautzenheiser, just in case he has any other input, the director for our.
Thank you for your question. Mark Lautzenheiser, Director of Monitoring, Planning, and Rules. It actually is almost a perfect segue into our next board item here in just a moment, where we're going to be talking about regional monitoring, things of that nature. The short version is we did actually take a quick look at some of the air quality index, and as you noted, Director Dickinson, because of the nature of ozone being a regional air pollutant, it is a little bit of a tricky one. We do look at what we were already forecasting, and we were already asking for people on those days to call for spare the air days, because it just being very hot summer days, we typically have higher ozone already. So the exact impact of these emissions was tough to judge, but just based upon our past experience, we do anticipate that it did have an impact.
And then what's the status of these plants now? Are they still available in case of a grid emergency or conditions that call for additional generation? If so, have they had other control technology applied to reduce the emissions?
These are permitted facilities. These are major sources that we have in our area. So those generators, the 28 out of 56, I believe, generators, they are permitted and able to operate under normal permit conditions. So not under an emergency proclamation, unless that's released again in the future. No additional controls were put on after that. The funding that we are receiving, those are some of the things that potentially, we could be looking into. So as I mentioned, the state's goal is to have the cleanest technology that those funds would go to. But it doesn't mean that those types of added controls to clean up diesel equipment that's already permitted could not be on the table.
So additional controls or some on the sources are something that are within the menu of things that you would look at for projects for the use of the money that's been the $23 million the $23 million was across the region. Is that right?
So $23 million is throughout the state, so different air districts will
statewide.
receive. Yes, it is a statewide program.
So whatever is received in the region is same question, is control technology on the sources on the menu of what the money might be used for?
The guidelines at this point in time are not finalized, so they're still working on them. And from what I understand from our grants and incentives team, they're looking for the cleanest technology possible. So zero emission would be great. So if we're putting in something like battery backup versus a diesel-fueled piece of equipment, that would actually be more ideal. But if we could get a source down closer to zero, I believe that would probably be an eligible funding.
I see. Okay. Well, I mean, the things that you've got on the slide are fine, but ultimately the best solution is to stop it at the source. So that's why I wondered whether that's within the ambit of what could be done. I appreciate the presentation. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
The comparison you made, I assume that when you get to the 1.95 million of the region, that would be based on biggest bang for the buck, right? What's the greatest reduction in risk or emissions that we could get in the region? Or is it specifically tied to this site that you referenced?
It is not specifically tied to this site. That is correct.
So the site comparison, I think the statistic was in the 4 days of constant operations, 28 of the 53 generators there put out more pollution than that facility had in the previous year. Is that? So it's not like more pollution than the entire region from diesel engines. It was just that facility.
That facility.
So the real question is, what percent of the overall, diesel generation horsepower, however you want to measure that, did that facility represent during that time? Because we could be talking about, a millionth of a percent change, or it could be 5%, in the region.
Correct.
That'd be a very interesting data point.
Thank you for your question, and I will turn this back over to Mark Lautzenheiser.
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Sander, for your question on this one. The short answer is approximately it would be about representing 15% of the emissions on a given summer day. Right now, our stationary source as a whole emits approximately between 6 to 7 tons of NOx per day. Since that was 3.8 tons over 4 days, it's 0.9 tons. So just a quick rough numbers of the math, you're looking at about 1/6 to 1/7 contribution to the NOx.
Of a day spread over 4.
That would be on a one-day to one-day comparison.
A one day to one day?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise it's 3.8 tons over 4 days, so 0.9 and change, 0.95, and go from there.
Okay, good. That's a clearer comparison, at least from my perspective. So yeah, I guess I'd be interested in not necessarily that particular site. Maybe that is our dirtiest site. But in general, is there another alternative that would have just as much sort of bang for the buck?
And by the way, just one thing I want to clarify a little bit what I said. That's compared to our stationary sources. So we obviously do have a very significant contribution of NOx from mobile.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I should have added that. I should add that clarification.
I wasn't going to
there
question
on
that, but that seems much more reasonable to me now that you said that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do we have any public comment on this item?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
The next item, item number 11, regional collaboration for ambient air monitoring, and I have Mark Loudsenheiser to give a presentation.
Thank you. Mark Loudsenheiser, Director of Monitoring, Planning, and Rules. And as I indicated a moment ago, the question from Director Dickinson was actually a great segue in terms of the regional nature of air pollution. So what we have here is an opportunity to share with you a little bit about some of the collaborative effort that does go on right now here in our region with our partner air districts. Next slide, please. So for those that have been with the board for a number of years and those returning as well, a lot of these names are going to sound very familiar. A lot of the partner air districts that we work with regularly here in our region are the Yola Solano Air District, Feather River to our north, Placer and El Dorado in addition to ourselves. Next slide, please. And the reason why we are showing you these 5 air districts, including ourselves, that work so closely together and collaboratively is when the federal U.S. EPA sets the national ambient air quality standards, and there are air quality standards for a number of pollutants. There are 6 criteria pollutants listed here in the slides that they do set national health-based standards for. Every time they do update a standard, one of the parts of the process is the designation. And what that means is they go through, they look at air quality data that's coming from all the monitoring in the different jurisdictions. They establish both whether or not a region is in attainment with those standards or non-attainment, and they also designate boundaries. And this becomes very important when we look at regional pollutants like ozone, but they also do establish different boundaries based on the pollutants. And on the next slide, we'll go ahead and jump to it real quick. This is a great example where we, once it pops up, where you can see on the far left, that is the ozone boundaries, which actually is all of our own county in Sacramento. It's all of the Yola Solano Air District. It's the very southern part of Feather River, and the majority of both Placer and El Dorado all the way up to the ridge line. Yet when you jump over to the PM 2.5 daily standard, the boundaries are very different. It's Yola Solano, ourselves, and just the very valley portion of Placer and El Dorado. Feather River is not included. And when you get to the PM10 standard, it's actually a county standard. So this is just to give you a quick idea, though, when we are looking at different pollutants, some of them are more regional in nature, looking at things like the ozone that we were just being describing as part of the problem with the backup generators that are being used for power generation, and also just then how we have to look at different strategies depending upon what these boundaries are. Next slide, please. So the reason why these boundaries do matter, as I was alluding to just a moment ago, is we do have regional attainment status, whether that's across a bigger region or down to the local level at just the county. And because air pollution does not know the bounds of a county line or even an air district line, we do have a shared responsibility on what's happening in the region. And it really is a matter of the all for one and one for all, to go back to the Great Musketeer line, because we really are working as a team here. The reductions that we get in our region or the impacts we have from the description that just happened in Amy Roberts' presentation a moment ago, they do affect not just ourselves, but our neighboring air districts as well and our regional attainment. Next slide, please. And really fundamental behind all this is the quality of our data. We really do live and die by the sword, no pun intended to the picture from the last slide, because our data integrity is critical. It both lets us know where we are today, where we were yesterday, and as we're making those projections going forward, where we hope to be tomorrow. And if we don't have solid data, then we can't, for example, say we've made attainment. We can't make that demonstration. So it really is so critical to make sure for not just ourselves, but our regional partners that this data is of good quality, and it is really very much that all hands on deck. Next slide, please. Real quickly, this is actually just the ozone network going across our region. There are additional stations in some cases here in Sacramento that we have that are dedicated to just fine particles, but this is the ozone network being shown here. And the reason for this slide is just to both give you a visual of the broad range and good geographic representation of the ozone monitoring across the region, but it's also an opportunity to just share that for the most part, there are a couple of exceptions. These stations are locally owned and operated. There are a couple of exceptions here. The yellow one labeled T Street right near the border here in Sacramento County is actually at the California Air Resources Board lab, so they do run that station at their lab. And El Dorado, just because of the nature of the size of the agency and their staffing, those are actually operated by CARB as well. But otherwise, ones in Placer, Sacramento, and Yolo Solano in particular are all locally owned and operated. Next slide, please. Which really brings us to what we're here just to share with you a little bit, in addition to that opportunity to give you a little bit more broad spectrum on what we're doing with the monitoring, is we talk about the, I mentioned earlier about the mission critical nature of having good quality data. So we've recently had one of our neighboring districts, Yolo Solano, reach out to us for some assistance. For the next 4 months, their key staff member that maintains their air monitoring stations is being called up to active duty and will be deployed. So we thank him for his service as he is, for his actions there. But they did reach out to us because they looked at what they had available in-house and were concerned about the ability to go ahead and maintain quality data that we need for the region. So they did reach out to us. We have coordinated with our staff, and a big shout out to our team who have looked at it, feel that they could go ahead and take time on, say, their normal days off, things of that nature, where they're going to go ahead and step forward and help maintain their part of the network over this next 4 months in a manner, though, that will not impact our own work here in maintaining good quality data in Sacramento. So this is really about making sure that all 5 districts are maintaining good data. And so even though we talk about here putting all 5 districts at risk if we weren't helping them, but we're going to step forward to make sure that that doesn't occur and that we maintain that good data. Next slide, please. And so just to take a quote here, about, again, why this data is so important for us, though, is you can't manage what you don't measure. And that really is the nature of air pollution, our air monitoring network, and the regional collaboration in maintaining this good quality data. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Director Cerna.
Great, thank you. I just wanted, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to add to what you've offered here in the slide deck that we have, of course, a member of this board that is also a representative for the same regional geography, the 5 air districts at the California Air Resources Board. Mr. Guerra serves well on that board, and at least when I had served previously on the board, we had structured regular meetings. At the time it was Zoom because we were in the throes of COVID, but regular convenings with the air pollution control officers of all 5 districts so that we could stay in touch, not just on ozone matters, and not necessarily just on what was on the CARB agenda, but that representation model, if you will, also lends itself to, I think, the kind of the point of the whole presentation, which is, how we collaborate with our sister districts in the basin. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clearly understood, and I don't know if Councilmember Guerra's still with us here, but he may want to offer other, similar comments.
Actually, Director Guerra's hand is up.
Very good.
Yes, thank you. And I'm actually getting ready to scoot on across the street here to the CARB hearing, and where we are talking about this particular issue as well. But I just, again, wanted to thank, again, one product of that meeting of our, not only our 5 air basins, but also the 5 air districts, but those in the north is what led us to be able to even have any resources on the ag burning side. I also do want to take this opportunity to just, again, thank how much our staff has been involved in creating probably the most robust air quality, air monitoring system. I would say, frankly, in the country. So the kudos actually I'll give to Rancho Cordova, who started first with the purple monitoring program, and then led to the city of Sacramento putting in about $500,000 in a testing program here. But all of those have helped us create not only a local but a regional monitoring program to help us better understand how these particulates are affecting public health. And it's led to positive things like the ability to get HVIP vouchers for our buses, not only here, but in the Yolo Solano Air District. So a big kudos on the collaborative work. And with that, Mr. Chair, I need to log off and thank everyone again for some good work here that we're doing together.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for representing us well on CARB. Any other questions, comments? Do we have any members of the public?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Good work, great collaboration, and recognition that air pollution sees no political boundaries. Appreciate it. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is the Air Pollution Control Officer presentation, and I have Alberto Ayala on Zoom to give a presentation.
Dr. Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everybody. I know that we're going to lose a few of you for other commitments, which is fine. I'll try to run through the 5 points that I want to share with you quickly and entertain questions either as we go or at the end for those of you that are going to be able to stay with us. But before I launch into the presentation, I want to say again, welcome to our new board members. But as speaking of recognition, we want to thank our outgoing board chair, Director Kennedy. Thank you for your guidance over the last couple of years. You led us through some pretty important initiatives here at the agency. The lasting effect is going to be very positive because a lot of those initiatives will continue to grow as we change leadership. And we have a very small token of appreciation from the staff, a plaque that the clerk is going to hand to you at the end of the meeting. But again, we just wanted to say thank you for being our leader the last couple of years.
Thank you, Doctor. It's a pleasure.
So the first point that I want to share with you, and in particular the new board members, is the fact that one of the principal jobs that we carry as an air district is administering state funds for the transition to clean energy. And the way we do that is we provide incentives or subsidies, whatever you prefer, to various partners in our jurisdiction. And the way the incentives work is basically you help offset the cost of cleaner technology, and the cleanest is obviously electric, zero emissions. So without going into detail here, what I wanted to share with you is these are examples of some recent contracts that I have signed. And what I wanted you to see is the diversity in terms of the regional approach. We work with the school districts, obviously. A lot of what we do for the districts is help them procure electric school buses, obviously, the infrastructure that they need for those school buses. But not only school districts, we also work with individual jurisdictions like cities, for example. Next slide, please. And we can also work with private businesses in our programs. It's just a matter of who's willing to participate and apply for our programs. So that's really the point of my 2 slides here is I just wanted you to get a sense of just the regional approach that we have to these programs and the diversity of the people that we work with. And, these are very important funding opportunities. And a lot of what we do is make sure that we're at the table speaking on behalf of our region, procuring the state funding that goes for these clean energy programs. So you'll be hearing throughout the year more information about some of these programs. Next slide, please. So on biomass, I did want to put this before the board because technically we don't have a legislative committee of the board. And this is not a board action, but I do want you to be aware of this. And this was alluded to recently. Thanks to Director Guerra's leadership, we have actually been in discussion with a number of legislators. And one of them, Senator Caballero, is willing to carry some legislation for us related to some of the topics that you heard us talk about with respect to biomass utilization. And in this particular case, is a bill that is going to develop, it's a little wonky, but it's going to develop the methodology that we need to be able to quantify the benefit of utilizing the biomass for clean energy rather than leaving it out in the forest or in the field and present a risk for a wildfire. That's really what we're trying to do here, is get the state to finalize those methodologies so that we can quantify what the benefit is. And once we do that, then we can monetize that. We can go to a business and say, you got to procure the biomass, we got to utilize it, and you can put a dollar amount to it. We are listed as a co-sponsor. The other sponsor is our friends in Placer County, the Air Pollution Control District there, and we're working very closely with the Bioenergy Association of California. The bill language is included in your package in case you are curious about it, and obviously this is just a brief notation in terms of what we're doing here throughout the year, and obviously as this moves through the process, we will come back with more information for you. Next slide. The next thing is, again, I hope that all of you have signed up for our newsletter. It's a great piece of information. Our communications office does a great job putting together timely and relevant pieces of information related to the agency. And one of the things that I want to highlight for all of you in the latest newsletter is our 2024 year in review. And all of you should have a hard copy of it. Again, it's another great document that collects all of the key initiatives, all of the key accomplishments that we were able to achieve in this past year, 2024. So I do want you to be aware that you got that, and I hope that you make the time to look it over. It was a very successful year by any measure. And obviously, we'll come back to you soon and talk about what we expect in 2025. But I wanted to make reference to the year-end review. Next slide. Thank you, Director Maple, for sending us in this direction. She had a direct request to us to expand our social media presence. And thankfully, we've got, again, new resources in our communications office, and we've been able to do that. So now here are the platforms that we have a presence in, and hopefully you all can do your thing on your end on social media.
Probably put X on there.
Or connections.
I have a blue sky account.
Next slide. And then this is my last point. And again, I want to thank our new chair, Aquino, for prompting us to do this. We've developed some new resources for onboarding our 5 new board members. But obviously, we welcome any returning board member who wants a refresher on the Air District. And we'll be setting up individual meetings with all of you new board members to go over this. And again, this is a new resource for all of you. So thank you, Chair. This concludes my APCO report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ayala. Director Cerna.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the report, Alberto. I wanted to make a suggestion before we recess here. That I had an opportunity last night to be at a grand opening for Reyes Distribution / Golden Brand, which is a beverage distribution center located in Metro Air Park in the northern part of the district I represent in Natomas. And I think, as many in the room know, Metro Air Park is building out very quickly. I just learned yesterday we're nearing 50% build out, which is much faster than anyone expected, and I think generally good news for the number of jobs that are being generated out there and just the general activity. One of the interesting characteristics of Metro Air Park, and I think some of it's organic, but some of it has also been deliberative, is that there are a number of tenants and users out there that in one way, shape, or form have much to do with the evolving heavy freight electric propulsion space, whether it's Sparks with their non-cobalt technology, battery technology, research and development and production. In fact, yesterday at the grand opening, I learned that Reyes Distribution is actually got a assigned fleet of electric tractors right now for their distribution service in and around the Sacramento region, and they plan to expand that. They have their own charging infrastructure on site. We have Watt EV going in just on the other side of I-5, which is arguably one of the most innovative initiatives in California to electrify heavy freight movement up and down the spine, I-5 spine of California from Long Beach to the Oregon border. So that is all to say that I think we're at a point where I'd like to suggest through the new chair that we have a dedicated presentation. Doesn't have to be the next board meeting, but I would say maybe by summer, that involves our economic development staff here at the county, maybe even some of the users out at Metro Air Park that may be able to join us in chambers and explain in greater detail what those initiatives entail and what the future is for their various business objectives that involve electrification of heavy freight movement. But I do think we're at a place where it needs to be somewhat celebrated, and I think it would be of great interest to this board and the public and to our staff about what is happening in that part of Sacramento County.
Thank you. Vice Chair Aquino.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Cerna. I think that's an excellent suggestion, and it's a good segue to my comments. I just want to thank Chair Kennedy for his leadership the past 2 years. And two of the highlights that stand out in my mind were the multi-agency meeting that was held at Sac State and the hydrogen workshop that we had there in the chambers. And I hope to continue that spirit of collaboration and education, and look forward to working with all of you, and happy to have Vice Chair Maple along to help with that effort. So again, thank you, Chair Kennedy, for your efforts the last 2 years.
Thank you. Director Maple.
Thank you, Chair. I just really want to uplift Director Cerna's comments as well. And it really got me thinking that, while we are doing a lot in Sacramento and in our region, in our county, and our city, we know that it's going to be a lot more challenging for some of these organizations to continue the work that they're doing in the current administration, federal administration. And so love to, as a part of that conversation, I think it's a great idea, maybe have that discussion as well about how we can collectively support those efforts that are going on, and not necessarily, let's not go back. That's my
Slash play defense, right?
Slash play defense, that's true. So I just want to say that. Also want to sincerely thank Director Chair Kennedy for your work. It's been a pleasure serving with you, and I'm sure I'll continue to do so. Really, and thank you everyone for your faith in me as Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Director Robles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Ayala, thank you for the presentation. Really do appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to redoing so I can refresh a little bit of what we do so I can stay on top of my game. Chair Kennedy, I just want to say thank you for your service and thank you for your work on here. Definitely going to be missed. Going to miss you volunteering me for stuff. So thank you for being accepting and kind of guiding me along the ways, and looking forward to seeing Chair Aquino and Vice Chair Maple as we move forward. So,
thank you, Director. Anyone else? All right, do we have any public comment on this?
Not at this time, Chair.
We do not. Thank you, Dr. Ayala, for the, as always, thorough and judiciously timed item. Thank you very much. Next item, board ideas, comments, and AB 1234 reports. Anything? Seeing none, do we have public comment for anything not on the agenda?
Not at this time, Chair.
We do not. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.